Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman.
And hello, everyone. So glad to be here again with you. We keep rocking it out here. Us spiritual rock stars having a good time, waking up. We got a wonderful, amazing guest to help us deepen our awakening today. Gabriel, good to be here with you today.
Well, Daniel, it's good to be here with you. So good. It's close to my hometown, Highland Park, Illinois.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and then you told me you're near Wrigley Field for a while, and
yeah,
so yeah, it's really been a very interesting time, overall in the world. But not too long ago, those Cubs finally broke the curse, the so-called curse, right? They got it done. So pretty cool stuff. Well, I'm going to tell you more about Gabriel Cousens, MD's Into the Nothing is what we're going to be talking about in part today. A spiritual autobiography is about the wild, courageous, adventurous, mystical life that led to his spiritual liberation. This book is destined to be a spiritual classic, takes us through his unique process of spiritual awakening along several paths. The yogic way of life, including 7 years immersed in a globally traveling ashram, the Torah, most specifically the Kabbalistic and Essene teachings, which I'm really looking forward to knowing more about, that are the most mystical aspects of Judaism, and the Native American tradition, where he braved the extremes of spiritual trials of initiation to become a Native American sun dancer, eagle dancer, and spirit dancer. I haven't gotten into all that, but I've supported some people in these things before. Pretty amazing. All of these aided him in his quest into the nothing, where he experienced his conscious beyond the perceived restriction of mind and body, and the state where true freedom lies. Today, the 77-year-old world-renowned holistic physician, spiritual mystic, Rabbi, Yogi, psychiatrist, family therapist, vital at any age advocate, humanitarian peace ambassador, walks the planet in the state of eternal presence, seeing the emanating light of all things, and yet living in the very real world where his good works and spiritual guidance change lives daily. There's many things I could share with you, including, I'll just tell you about some of his works. He has 13 international best-selling books, pioneering a natural way to cure type 2 diabetes in 21 days, becoming one of the foremost spiritual professionals on the authentic rising of the Kundalini energy and healing of the occasional imbalances resulting from Kundalini awakening, establishing humanitarian programs in 42 nations, and emerging as one of the world's leading proponents for a healthy, natural, vegan, alive food diet. So we welcome you again to the show, Gabriel.
Thank you, Daniel. That sounds impressive.
That sounds pretty good, eh?
I never look back. Never look back. Just keep going. That's why I look at it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, nice. Well, let's talk about this. Now, one of the reasons why I was really compelled to have you on the show is the title, this Into the Nothing, with your new book, or one of your newest books anyway. People like you sometimes got a lot of new books, but it's one of your newest ones, of course. And I have people that I've talked to even recently, and we talk about that spiritual awakening, right? It's all about getting into the stillness, the nothingness, and all this sort of stuff. In fact, one time recently, I was talking to somebody. I don't want to give away the person's identity necessarily, but he, has a lot of success financially speaking and impact-wise. He says, all I'm looking right now is to become nothing. That was his focus, he told me. So I think it's such a fascinating thing to talk about because, of course, part of us and have the awakened impulse are like, yes, I want to experience just nothing. Finally, set me free. And then there's other people who are like, sounds interesting, and hell no. Like, there's no way I want to go into the nothing, right? So, can you tell us more about this whole business about going into the nothing? What led you to write this book? Maybe that's a good opener, and talk about this subject and
Okay.
the challenges people have with this idea of going into nothing.
It's a great way to start. And so the Torah says you can't know God and live. That's a really important subtlety here. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to die if you know God, but if you keep an individual identity, like in yoga, we talk about samadhi and nirvikalpa samadhi, and thing. But there's an I experiencing the samadhi.
Right.
When in Buddhism we talk about a quiet mind, there's an I experiencing the quiet mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a starting point. You want a quiet mind. But we're talking about beyond the mind, and when the sense of I disappears and there is no you left, there's only God or the nothing. So that encapsulates it clearly. Now, it's not something I tried to do. When I was in India meditating 6 hours a day, chanting 4.5 hours a day, each day I began getting deeper into this disappearance. So it didn't happen suddenly. It happened over time when I went beyond the mind, and that's the key. But there's still an I behind the mind, but eventually that also disappears. And that's why into the nothing is a different way of really talking about it. In spiritual life, as you pointed out very, very clearly, it's a little scary for people. Okay? You're not in control. And well, we never were in control, but you get clear you're not in control. So merging into God means letting go of all your ideas, all your concepts, all your belief systems of how it's supposed to be, and ultimately your I amness. So when we're born into an I amness. We have a sense of us. Then we have I am this, I am that. But when we're meditating at the level I'm talking about, there's just spontaneously I amness disappeared. Then I-ness disappeared, and there was just existence in this nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
If we, I've kind of looked around, who wrote about this? Aren't a lot of people talking about it at the level I'm talking about, but I did see some more mystics talking about it, like in Sfat, which is in northern Israel, in the 16th century. They were talking about disappearing into the nothing. But it's different than a quiet mind. And it's different than no mind, because there's an I having no mind. Okay, fine. But there's no I here. And that's the thing that makes it really beyond. So that's really what I'm describing. Why did I write it? Because it needed to be written. Part of my, in Indian terms or Buddhist terms too, Dharma was to go over all the spiritual subtle anatomy, really lay out the whole Kundalini, but actually talk about disappearing into the nothing and supporting people in their fear of that, supporting people to overcome their fear of that.
Yeah.
So this is just part of the kind of liberation spiritual process. Okay. But you don't have to disappear the nothing to be enlightened or liberated, because you don't hear that language. But and so we talk about a continuum. So when I began to describe these things to my two spiritual teachers, Swami Prakashananda and Swami Muktananda, Prakashananda said, okay, you're liberated. I didn't ask that. I was shocked to hear that. But he also talked about continuum between self-realization, you realize the self, but there's still a you, that's the self, and God merging. And in God merging, there is no you left. And so there is this spectrum that that I'm really talking about. So you can be liberated in the classical sense of, we say in yoga, but there's still an I-ness there. But and there's still self there. Self-realization is you realize the truth of who you are, beyond concepts, ideas, and belief systems. That's all gone. Beyond the mind, there's still you. But at the other level, there's no you. So that takes us back to Torah. Can't know God and live. I mean, that's a mystery. But now I'm making it clear what I'm saying. There is no, we're not talking ego here. There's no I-ness. There's not even a sense of existence. And you do that enough, that happens to you spontaneously every day, you kind of get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like divine behavior modification. You kind of get the idea. And that's what begins to happen. It's a natural and spontaneous process. It's not something you try for.
Right.
Because the minute you're trying, you're creating ego. You're creating goal. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So that's why I wrote it, because I think it's a very important part of people just to be aware. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I described the play of the Kundalini, in the anatomy, what we call the 72,000 nadis, and the three, central nadis, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. But these are energetic things, because it's part of my work that has been given to me in explicit detail, and they share it so people in the West can know that. I didn't ask for it. In other words, it was just like, okay, that's part of your dharma.
Right. Right. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think, one of the confusions is around such things as, for myself, I remember at one point I was going on silent retreats, and our teacher talked similarly to, different terms, but similar, what you're talking about. There is no more I, there's, just is this, or however you want to put it, right? I mean, whatever, there is no self anymore and all that stuff. And then, then your mind, for people hearing that, if they're oriented towards wanting to go in that direction, you're like, that's for me, I want that, that's where, I mean, truthfully, that's where most people kind of start. They have that idea, like, that's for me at some level, right? And then because you're used to being goal oriented or I'm going to make it happen oriented, you're like, oh, I'll make that happen, or I'll do whatever it takes to achieve that, And what you discover is that it doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way.
Well, it gets in the way. It's ego,
yeah.
And so the I-ness can't disappear because you're goal oriented, and you can't be a you. You can't disappear if there's a you that's goal oriented.
Yeah.
And that's why I say all this happens spontaneously. I really like to meditate. The whole energetics, just what happened. I use the word between meaning and purpose. Purpose is goal oriented. Meaning is there's only God that gives meaning to life. Whatever happens is for the best, but it's this cosmic play. You mentioned something to me, it's very important. I call it desire and resist to wake up. A lot of people, oh, this is a good idea, this is cool.
Right.
But then there's the resistance to letting go of the ego identity.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this desire and resist. We have this fear, but we have this desire to wake up. And it's a play that I went through it explicitly for an hour. It was a funny thing when I really became aware of it. Okay. 1973, I was, somebody was giving a talk, and I'm seeing angels around this person. It totally freaked me out. It's like, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through a period of kind of fear because it was like, this is way beyond me. And then I said, wait, we're not going to stop. We're not going to like get into fear and shut down. But it took me an hour. Some people it takes years to get beyond the fear. We're all different. But if we don't acknowledge that there's a fear along the way, we can't adequately address it. And also we tend to want to pretend it's not there. So we seem like we're being spiritual. And I kind of opened the discussion and said, wait, there's some fear here. That's fine. Face it, acknowledge that it happens along the way and deal with it rather than pretend it isn't going to happen. So there's a few things in the book as it unravels for me, and I make a specific point about the fear. It's real, happens to almost everybody, and we need to be okay and aware of it and address it and work through it.
Part of the fear would be like a fear that, may come up for me, it comes up for others. Well, I'm going to go into nothingness, then all I want to do is nothing, and then how I'm going to live. I won't want to do. I won't be good for anything. I'll just be in the nothingness. So there's maybe you could help us with that, because it's like, because I know, like for me, I feel part of my dharma is to help people in specific ways that don't always seem like to my own mind spiritual. Like, oh, I'm supposed to help people in this way or that way. But my mind says, oh, you're not, that's not so deep. That's not the nothingness. That's not about nothingness. You're helping them those specific ways. So mind is really, it makes it all goofy, right? So could you help people are thinking like that? Like if their dharma is to be a bank teller or something, but like, they're like, but then if I'm in the nothingness, I won't even want to be a bank teller. I'll probably just do nothing. So I know that this is going on for people. Could you address that issue that comes up for people?
Yeah.
You're like, where will I be, out on the street?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's actually a very important question, and that's part of the fear. So once you're clear of all your ideas of who you're supposed to be,
right,
implanted by your parents, implanted by the school system, implanted by the society, okay, you're then free to align yourself with the will of God. And so if you're supposed to be sitting here doing an interview, you're supposed to be writing a book, I never thought I'd be writing a book. Honestly, never. Just like, no way. Okay, and that was in the 70s. But the point I'm making is that's my dharma. So when you're aligned with the dharma, you do it. And one of the things that I talk about is the voice of God. So when I was 4 years old, the voice said, be a doctor. Now, my family, we're in Chicago, they were bakers. They had a bakery there, and there was some Bialystok, and okay. It's like, what? Be a doctor? Ridiculous. But the point is, I followed that voice. And then at 8, I began seeing visions like, nobody understood what I'm talking about. I'm seeing these people in white, which turns out to be these scenes. Okay, fine. And then I was kind of given the message to start meditating. Nobody taught me how to meditate. I just started to do it. And then I met Swami Muktananda when I was 33. Those are kind of important ages. And I went deep, and I actually went into the nothing from what we call Shaktipat, where he had the descent of grace to awaken the Kundalini. When I came down, God's voice rang out again. I call it the whisper, right? Didn't yell at me, it was a whisper. It said, you should learn to eat and live in a way that supports the Kundalini. Fine. So I didn't know exactly what Kundalini was, but that's cool. Easy to learn. And I began working with the Kundalini. I was receiving Shaktipat that keeps awaking it. And my first book in 1986 was Spiritual Nutrition, the Rainbow Diet, How to Eat in a Way to Become a Superconductor of the Divine. I never would have done that. That was the farthest thing from my mind, but that voice said that. So, okay, I know that there's something very real here. I need to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that 7-year cycle, I had different visions and different realizations. Um, and then I also got the message. I had completed what I needed to be there. I got Muktananda's acknowledgement. And then I did a 40-day fast, 1983. And at the end, the last day, I was out without food and water for the last 3 days. A little voice rang out again. Okay, the whisper of God, and said, "You need to go to your roots." Okay, that's it. Short, not a whole explanation. Boom. And so I began studying Judaism and the Torah and learning about the Essenes, but that was the directive. So the will of God was pulling me along. So as you open up, your ego kind of gets aligned with the will of God. Now I'm going to make a point, which I make in the book. Ego is not bad. We need a body, we need a mind, and we just need to have that aligned with the divine unfolding. Usually ego controls the divine unfolding, gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So if we flip it, and so consciousness guides ego, then ego is not bad, but is a tool for dharma, doing your right livelihood, doing your right action. So you don't necessarily going to end up poor or rich or what, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay, because you're fulfilling your divine purpose, because your will is now aligned with the divine will, and that will take you wherever you need to go.
Right. Yeah,
So
exactly.
that speaks directly to yeah, you need to let go. There's a Taoist saying, the master lets go knowing that life is forever out of control. So you give up the illusion of control,
Mm-hmm.
you align yourself, and that's the only choice you make. And then whatever happens is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's usually for the benefit of humanity and for yourself in different ways. So I was guided more in the humanitarian programs all over the world, veganic programs, diabetes prevention programs, which are very materialistic. I mean, curing diabetes, we certainly had a lot of meditation, but the point is you're dealing with a medical issue. But at the end of most of these programs, they say, thank you for helping me reconnect to my soul. Okay, so Dharma unfolds in different ways. Now it's a little bit different, as this book is kind of a turning point into saying to be more explicitly teaching spiritually at this level uh, because of it's time. I know it's time. That's it. That's all I have to know. And I have to trust that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to trust that voice of God.
Mm-hmm.
I had well, there are different visions I had along the way. When I first came to, not when I first came to Israel, but in 2007, I took what we call Aliyah, the stepping up. They didn't have an initiation. How can you not have an initiation? So I made my own up. Okay. So I went out in a cave, kind of up in the mountains overlooking the Dead Sea. And high enough so you didn't have to worry about lions and different things. There are a lot of wild animals. And on the second day, it was again 72 hours without food or water. I saw an image of Abraham materialized. Didn't say anything, but clearly was for real, and it transferred to me a certain energy. One is the warrior, spiritual warrior energy, and also kind of the universal love. Abraham's tent was open in all four directions. And it was very empowering. So as we do these different things, the heavens, so to speak, are empowering us along the way also. And it kind of gives you an idea that you're, again, aligned with the divine will. So those are just kind of little, not little, they're big things. We always have to be listening to what God is telling us.
Right, right. That's how I see it. Is life. If there is an orientation, I mean, one great one is that life's a listening. Really, I mean, we're
Yeah.
listening. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where things are in the flow, or all the things words people use. Right, we were in the listening.
And even I mentioned everything I ever learned in life was from meditating, playing football.
Yeah.
I was a Chicago Bear fan, incidentally,
Uh-huh.
but I was kind of honorable mention all state in high school and National Football Hall of Fame type thing. But what did I learn from that? Well, when I would get so wound up with the football, I would go beyond my mind and start having these ecstatic experiences in the middle of the field. Didn't mean I stopped playing,
Mhm.
but I was feeling the whole unity consciousness and the one. It was like, that's
Yeah.
pretty trippy when you're playing football, But it was telling me something very important. So that's kind of a little subtlety of there,
Yeah, I
so
mean, that's not entirely unusual for people who are really peak performers. I've heard that from other stories of be a Prince or different performers, and when they get in these ecstatic states of
that's right.
connection, it's just not just don't hear about it so much, but that these it happens. That's yeah, that's pretty amazing. I want to talk more about like some people are like, wow, okay, cool. I'd love to live in the nothingness, so to speak. Okay, just however we're putting it, right? But I love that. Okay, great. How do I live? Because you talk about this natural way of living, which I like to refer to all the time too. What's the most natural, path for us to unfold? And from that listening, so, what are some orienting points you can give people to live this natural, holistic way of living where you are just following the sense of the divine flowing through you and things are just happening? You're liberated because you no longer are with this idea I need to control anything. So
You're
that's
not going
so
anywhere.
beautiful about it, right? So, how can we orient people?
So what we're talking about is not only you're not going anywhere, but nothing has ever happened. It's already all happened.
Right, right, right.
Okay. So it's a paradox. So I talk about kind of a non-religious approach, which is 6 foundations and 7-fold peace. Now, what are the 6 foundations? And well, it's about quieting the mind to transcend it. So first is eating a vegan and at least an 80% live food diet. Well, why? Hey, I grew up near the stockyards in Chicago. What are you talking about, right? I never met a vegan until I was 28 years old. I think, what is this? Okay. Well, the point is, when you take animal into you, you're taking off they're taking in their pain, fear, and misery, which agitates your mind, but also you're blocking the nadis. Remember, these are the subtle spiritual pathways. So death, misery, pain, and animal flesh blocks the nadis. And that was like kind of the essence of my first book. Okay, spiritual fasting. I found that fasting 1 week twice a year was really good for elevating people in general. And if you lost your way, it gets you back on track. That's foundation 1. Second foundation is um, ecstatic dance, yoga. We do try yoga, um, tai chi, qigong, things like that. And that kind of gets you into a physical flow of alignment. Third is service and charity. So when you're doing service and charity, you're not really, I mean, yes, you are helping other people, but we're all one. But really what you're doing is opening your heart and feeling your oneness and connection. So that's a pretty important thing. Fourth is working with a spiritual teacher if you're ready. Not everybody's ready, but the spiritual teacher can kind of look behind you, so to speak, and see what's going on, that stuff you can't see. It's your blind spots. The fifth is meditation, and what we call repeating the name of God. And the sixth is as much Shaktipat, or receiving energetics from the spiritual teacher as possible, because it not only awakens the spiritual energy known as Kundalini, evolutionary spiritual energy. Okay, that's good. But the more you get, the more it flows, and the more it burns up things and burns up your karma, and also reorganizes your chakra systems. And I talk about as the chakras, and I had a vision of each chakra. I didn't know any of this. I had a vision of the petals. I had vision, and it was very accurate. Although, like I mentioned, I had a vision of 8 petals in the heart. Well, it's not, but it is, because the subtle heart is 8 petals. Okay, I don't know that, but
Right.
so, okay. And then, so those are the 6 foundations. Getting always reinforced with the spiritual energy. So the Kundalini is both cosmic coming down, but also evolutionary going up, where it's literally reorganizing yourself at the chakra level, cellular level. I call it the koshas, which are the layers of the mind. There's 5, well, depending on the system, 5 or 6 layers of the mind. And I just saw all those clearly. That was what was going on. I didn't know this. It's like, who would know to read about this? Okay, I mean, who knows it even now? So that's when, okay, now the 6th foundation, now the sevenfold piece is a little bit more from the Essene way, and it's peace with the body, which we talked about, peace with the mind, the meditation, and then the third is peace with the family. One of the main things I say, everything I ever learned was from playing football, meditating, and sacred relationship. Because in sacred relationship, you have an amplified feedback system. And it's a precursor of the relationship with God. Because intimacy is something that has to be mastered, where you have to give up your fear of being intimate. That's a big issue. And that goes into our desire and risk for God, because we have a fear of merging into God as well, just like we've talked about. Mm-hmm. And then the next is peace with the community. Now, you can see there's a lot of chaos in the world today, but peace with the community means détente. Now, I've been around the world. I live in central Harlem for 3 years. I worked on the south side of Chicago with black gangs. I mean, that's a level of peace. Playing basketball with black gang at 11 o'clock at night, that kind of, but peace is the interface. And that's what's missing today. People are in polarity, but they're upset, they're angry about it. And I'm talking about peaceful interface. And so what's the different? What's the big deal? I mean, it's not, but people are basing their egos on that, I've got to be right. And we want to kill those who don't agree with us. It's like, no, we're interface. And then peace with all cultures. Now, in the Native American way, we call Om and Takiwasin. What does that mean? Everybody is my relative. So we have what we call the rock people, which is the living planet. And then we have the plant people. I'm using Native American language. Then we have the flying ones, walking ones, the animals, and then all the human cultures. Okay, now we talk about peace with the living ecology. I call it spiritual ecology. So we begin to understand, different than an environmentalist who's acting or protecting the environment, we are the environment. We are one with the living planet. So that's a different level of understanding. And then finally, peace with God. So those are 13. Now, 13 is kind of a very important number in many ways. But the point I'm making is that's a simple way of living that takes you to God. And you're not doing anything. It's a way of living. That's different than, I'm doing my spiritual practice now. No, we're talking about a way of living that takes you to liberation. Because if it's your time, you're living this way, it's going to take you there. And if you aren't, you're still having a good time.
Wow.
You got to have a good time too. Joy, spiritual joy, we call simcha, is very important. I see people who aren't having a good time, they lose their focus. So if you aren't really having spiritual joy, what we call simcha, which is key to connecting with the divine, of course, the ecstasy of connecting with the divine is obviously key too. But this is what allows you to sustain this way of life. So we need to design this way of life that's leading us to liberation. I call it a holistic way of life that is constantly giving us that simcha or spiritual joy. That's a key for sustainability.
Mhm.
We're not talking about environmental sustainability. We're talking about your ability to sustain yourself on the spiritual unfoldment. And a lot of people get lost along the way. And they give up, they get tired, whatever. So one of the ways that I recommend to people is if you're not really having spiritual joy, you're doing the same thing year after year. It's like you're missing something. You need to reevaluate because you'll eventually lose that motivation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, there's so many things in here I could ask questions about. I wanted to ask a question about even all the way back from the first thing you said around the 6 foundations. I wanted to ask about many people talk about the importance of diet and what we're eating and being vegan, etc. So, um, yeah, I wanted to ask about that because I have heard that so many times that it's the energy in the meat, but then in the animals, so isn't it true that plants feel things? Doesn't any of that encode and go into the plants that we eat or anything that
Right.
we ingest?
It's
Or
it's
is it that there's what I've heard is more simplified. The energy is more simplified in plants, whereas it's more entangled when you go to animals. So I'd love to learn. I'm just curious, I'm curious about that. As you look in there, I would look at nature, and it doesn't necessarily mean what's best for us, but you got ones that eat plants, you got ones that eat animals, right? So it's not that it's a mental like right or wrong thing. It's just a matter of what's true for us, I guess, right? So I just curious about it because I'm not vegan currently. A lot of people
it's a really important question.
eat all that stuff, so I wanted to learn more about that.
It's a really important question. So I'm glad you asked. Okay. Um, so my key is you can't eat your way to God. Gotta start
Yeah.
there.
That's funny. You can't eat where you're gone. I like that. Yeah,
Okay.
that's so funny.
So, but it does support you in becoming a superconductor of the divine.
Hmm.
Okay. So it's always a paradox. In the whole process, it's always paradox. So do plants feel pain? Yes, they do. You read Secret Life of Plants, you get that. But theirs is different. The animals is you're eating the astral plane versus the subtle plane. Okay, well, we know in the treatment of multiple sclerosis, people who are eating meat don't do as well because their astral plane is already in trouble. Okay, now I observed it when I got the message you should learn to eat and live in a way. And Chicago, stockyards, 1940s. Come on, who ever thought about being a vegan? I mean, that was like, what?
Right.
Okay, so, but I observed in working with people that if the Kundalini energy was too much, they kind of spontaneously started eating meat
Ah, right. I got it.
because it was slowing and dulling the energy.
Yeah.
That was very interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
putting these things together because I'm not a vegan at that exactly at that time, but I'm observing, and it's like, okay, eating meat, fish, chicken, dairy is a sludge to the Kundalini. Fine. So I'm not going to eat that. But I saw people who were feeling overwhelmed by it going to that kind of diet to slow it all down. I was a great teacher.
Mhm.
So it's more of a, honestly, a practical thing. Now, yes, plants feel pain, but the animals have more overt, and again, astral plane energies that we're taking in. And you're also, as some of the yogic masters have said, you're taking in the animal ego, which is more in the astral plane, whereas plants don't exactly have an ego. They have energy, they communicate.
Right. Right.
So you're taking in the animal ego, and it brings you to a lower consciousness.
Mhm.
Because we want to let go of the animal, we want to transcend the animal ego to this higher level. So those are all kind of like subtleties in how you select a diet. Um, so the vegan diet is very supportive of that. A live food diet's a little different because when you cook food, you lose 50% of the protein and 60 to 7% of the vitamins and minerals and 95% of the phytonutrients. What does that mean? You can eat less.
Yeah.
So I
True.
eat one meal a day. I mean, I have some goji berries in the morning, but that's it. I have a salad. I don't need to eat much.
Mhm.
Now, I want to be clear, at the age of 77, I'm doing, 1,100 to 1,200 push-ups every few days. I'm
Mhm.
not getting weaker on this, right?
Right.
When I was captain of an undefeated football team, National Football Hall of Fame, I could do 70 push-ups. So now I'm doing what? 1,100, 1,200 push-ups? What's going on? So what's going on is that when you're doing this in a balanced way, and I want to bring in the word balanced, everyone has a unique constitution for what you should eat.
Right.
Um, about 70% of the people need more protein, which is easy to get with nuts and seeds and protein concentrates and spirulina and stuff. And about 30% need less protein.
Mhm.
Right. So I'm one of those people who don't need a lot of protein, maybe 10% of my diet is protein. But the point I'm making is on chromosome 19, it lays out how much fat, how much protein, how much carbohydrate you should have. So it is a genetic program. We have to find that. So there's no one diet for everybody. We
Right.
are unique individuals. So part of the diet thing is like get the diet that's best going to like help you become a superconductor. So that's part of it because we are unique. I mean, that's really important to get because there's one diet for everybody that gets promoted. It's good commercial, but it's really not truth.
Right. Right.
So I suggest people is, hey, get the diet best works, but we do know a plant-based diet is less pain, and you don't have the animal ego and astral field that's really exist and affects you.
Got
And
it. Got it.
blocks it. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks. 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 That's really, really wonderful. And I suppose that, that's something that, what do you have a reference for people that want to try to figure out what, so to speak? I mean, it's always like,
Yes, they do. Yes,
listening, right? Listening and feedback and is a
yeah.
primary way of knowing what's right for you overall, including diet.
My book,
Do you have
Conscious
other
Eating.
suggestions?
My
What?
book, Conscious Eating, explains how to do it.
Oh, great. Great. Well, that's good.
And also the rainbow green live food cuisine. I kind of go into the depth of, and it has interviews. And people can go actually to my website and
Mm-hmm.
take an interview, which shows are you a fast or slow oxidizer. So it's drcousens.com. They can go there. That's an easy one. And then, or treeoflife.mn.co. Now, here's the point. We have a chart and it tells you whether you need more or less protein. If you're a fast oxidizer, you need more protein. Big mistake. If you're a person needs more protein, having less protein because it's cool, not so good because it imbalances you.
Right.
So it's a like 30 questions and people get a rough idea of whether you're a more protein or less protein type person.
Right, right. And then there's things like people say you need iron and all that. So all those things, it takes those things into account, I suppose, right?
Yes, but well, the biggest thing is the protein.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what people do, it gets them in trouble.
Okay.
So we need between 10% to, I'll give you an actual story. about myself, right? Because obviously I monitor things. I think about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I kind of hit a plateau. I was doing 25 pull-ups. I just wasn't moving beyond that. I know that's a lot, but I get up to 100, very quickly. And I look at my diet, I said, wait, you're only getting about 8% protein. You're at a certain age, above 60, people need a little bit more protein.
Mm.
Okay, fine. So I add just a little bit more protein. What is that? One scoop of protein concentrate, spirulina or blue-green algae or something. That's it, one scoop. That's all. And in 1 month, I went from that 25 pull-ups into up to 100.
Mm-hmm.
One change, that's it. Add a little bit more protein. So that's how powerful it can be. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, exactly. No, I get it. You mentioned about many things. One thing you said when you got into the 13, you talked about that this comes a little bit more from the Essenes. Is that what you said? Did I hear you correctly?
Well, the scene's focused on the tree of life, and people have different ideas of the tree of life, but I'm going to say it's also Jacob's ladder, 13 steps. Okay, so the number 13, 3 and 1 in Hebrew is kind of oneness and love. 13 is oneness and love. 3 and 1 become one. So that's kind of an energetic, but it's an ascension kind of energy too. 13 steps. So that's kind of what I meant by that.
Okay.
The Essenes, of course, were involved with a lot of that thinking. The inner core were live food vegans. Then the outer core were vegan, and some people meet at the outer cores. But they were, I'm going to say, more intense. And when I was 8, I was having visions of them. I didn't know who they were. Nobody else did. And you didn't share that very well in the 50s in Chicago.
Especially the 50s, right?
Okay. So it's like, what's this about? But when I began studying them, I said, okay, these people are very spiritually focused, and that's what's needed. So they had a high level of spiritual awareness. They were all over it. People think they were just at Qumran. We used to do our fasting retreats right near Qumran, near the Dead Sea, spiritual fasting retreats. But really, they're all over the Middle East, up to Egypt, Lake Mareotis, to Damascus. And they were also families, but Qumran was like a little bit of a ashram in a sense. It was a training center for younger people. But the point I'm making, bringing it back here again, is that they ate very simply, and they focused on, in a sense, the liberation process. So they had that intensity. That's what I liked about these scenes.
Yeah. And some people believe they were interconnected with what happened with Jesus, and
Well, there's some good evidence that he was in the scene.
right.
And John the Baptist, his cousin, was in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in the Jordan River where he took what we would call mikvah, people call baptism, but it's mikvah. And it's just right around the top of the Dead Sea. There's the Jordan River. So I kind of went in what we think may have been the place, So it's nice to connect to all those energies. I think there is pretty good proof that Jesus was a play between the Essenes and the Pharisees.
Yeah.
There's even a book called Jesus the Pharisee. People have Pharisees got a bad name because there were some Pharisees who were, but somehow he was they did intense practices. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
And that's how I connect with these scenes, seeing that focus on God in a more intense way.
Yeah. That Could do a whole show just on the scenes, right? So I'll leave that one be for maybe for now. But as we're starting to begin to wrap things up a little bit, yeah, I mean, there's so many, things that, how are all the ways people can intersect? Like if people are like, wow, I'm just so fascinated. I want to get his books. I want to I want to look at the conscious seed. I want to look at everything I can. They need to go to your website, right? And then is that the best way to connect with you and your work?
It's good. So I'm in a little transition having moved to Israel, but yes, drcousens.com or treeoflife.mn.co. It has all my books, it all the references. I do teachings on a regular basis. On Monday nights, I'm doing what we call Shakti Hour, and Wednesday nights it's Alive with Dr. Gabriel, because people in this world today are stopping being alive. We need to open up to be alive again. To be alive, you have to connect with your own soul. So I have meditations on a regular basis, and then I also do what we call parshas, which are discussion of that week's Torah, again from a liberation point of view. One of my books is the Torah as a guide to enlightenment. Now, I couldn't recognize that until I went to India. It's like, what? Because the way people were teaching, they didn't really have the in-depth understanding. But when you really get it from a yogic point of view, oh, it makes perfect sense what's going on. So, and I'm giving the Shakti pot 3 times a week then. So I'm pretty easy to access. drcousens.com, it gives you the whole thing. That's an easy thing, drcousens.com. And then we have a newsletter, and I'm talking to people. And that's how I'm approaching it. I've made it pretty simple in that way.
Nice. Okay, wonderful. So
And they can get my books anywhere. They can get Into the Nothing anywhere. All my books are available on Amazon and different, just most of the book sellers, and also internationally as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hold it up again so you can see it.
Yeah, Into the Nothing there is showing on the video here. Absolutely. Beautiful cover. Beautiful cover.
Yeah. So that's how it works. It's pretty simple,
Yeah.
And my mission at this point is to get as many people to become alive, wake up, turned on spiritually as possible, as many people connected to their soul as possible. And then from that, everything makes sense.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Sometimes I've been confused, within myself. I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do, but I have my own way of doing it. I'm here to help people like you to help more people to do that on top of doing it in my own way, right? So it's like,
exactly.
We all have our own paths of doing our whatever our thing is.
Well, we all have our own dharma, which is
right
action in the world.
Right.
So you're interviewing me, but you're helping me get out and hopefully inspire as many people to turn on to God as possible and become liberated as possible.
Right. Exactly.
So,
awesome.
And I want to thank you for that. I want to bless you for that. I want to bless all the listeners, because this is a really important time in history, and we want to make it happen.
Yeah, it is. My guidance is real clear too. They told me, like, over these 10 years, especially, is what I got. Like, it's really important right now to get, no more messing around, kind of feeling like, hey, let's go.
Gotta pay attention, Mark. Gotta pay attention.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone could check out your books in all those places. treeoflife.co, right? Is what you said?
Well, treeoflife.mn.co.
Oh, got it. Okay, treeoflife.mn.co.
Or just drcousens.com.
Okay.
And then we'll take you to everything. And we're doing spiritual fasts over the internet. I'm teaching what we call a Jnana yoga called 0 Point.
Yeah.
So we have once a month a meditation retreat. In fact, this coming weekend we have one, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. We're Shaktipat meditation 3 times a day.
Nice.
Because you can actually give it over the internet, which blew my mind. It's like, okay, we don't have to do the touch. Obviously we can't. So it's pretty exciting. So that's what I'm offering because it's so important, at least, for my dharma, my responsibility to help people, to really be there for people, because it's a very confusing time,
Yeah.
really confusing time. So I want to give as much support as possible to people for that reason. So I'm making myself accessible at all these different levels.
It's so wonderful. Well, I'm definitely going to be checking everything out, and I'm really appreciative of you. So anyway, we'll put all the links into the show notes too for people to easily find you that way. And yeah, I'm just so delighted with everything you had to share with us today. I wanted to start to, wrap things up here. We're getting to that time. Um, I wanted to share with you just maybe for a moment or so, in a minute or so, just some, if I get any downloads, from the universe, to share with you those little quiet whispers. Would this be a good time to share something with you?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's see what wants to come through. This is just an interesting thing. I see you like maybe with a jazz horn or something. Like I don't know if it's a saxophone or what it is, but I
I
see
used
you
to
like
play the
getting.
clarinet. I used to play the clarinet.
Okay. Okay, but I see you like they saying jazz though. They're saying like this, like you being this kind of jazzy energy, and like going with that, like just these little things, like just a little bit more with that. Like I'm getting like this jazzy kind of energy. So whatever that means to you, that's what I'm getting. And yeah, it's beautiful. Let's see what else. Yeah. Well, just to share with the listeners, they can feel and see you too. But it's like I see such a depth in the space of your heart. That's quite, again, I've scanned thousands of people's energies, and it's got this really deep magnetic, deep space that is quite spacious and deep. So that people feel that. So as I've experienced, as the listeners are experiencing, it helps people to feel safe. They just feel like they can relax. We don't. Some spiritual teachers, you don't feel that. You might feel intimidated, or it's not always that way. So, you give people that grace of just being able to oh, I'm safe. Okay, good. I don't have to worry about that part. That's
That's
a
great feedback. Thank you.
yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
great thing. I think I'm getting one more thing. So let me get that. Yeah, it's really wonderful. So your sacral chakra connected with your third eye energy is so there's a real balance of your energy. So that's really good. Like the energy is circulating and flowing. So I can confirm for people. Some people, honestly, their minds are like, "Is this guy for real?" So I can feel the connection. It's like a conveyor belt going through your chakra system. The energy is really flowing well. So that's like, hey, good stuff, just good stuff going on. I also get with that third eye energy that there may be some, because that is something that I tend to pick up with people. I get there may be some more that you can bring through your third eye to just allow through your third eye, if you want to put it that way, or a little more attention there with some of the seeing and knowing you can do with some of your students and the way you work with them. So that's what I'm kind of getting. There could be a little bit more there to deepen with. So
Okay.
just a
That's
little
good.
nudge. Yeah, just a little nudge. Yeah. So,
It's good. That is opening up, and that's good advice. I appreciate that feedback.
sure
I
thing.
do.
Sure thing. Okay, great. And then if everybody would like to check me out as well, you can go to yoursacredpurpose.com. There's an opportunity for an energy scan consultation there, so I can tune into you too and give you support. And then there's also a free meditation, meditate to make money. So we open up your energy some and get you listening, and the natural way. Let's see what's wanting to come through. And again, I'm hearing people just enjoying it and then seeing more good results, more money, all that good stuff. So check it out at yoursacredpurpose.com. Get your free meditate and make money meditation, and check out everything there. And so, Gabriel, this is a chance now for you to if you have any last things, any last words, to share with everybody, now's the time. What are any last things to share with the audience?
So what's coming through to me is the most important thing is to become alive again. We're all born originals. Most people die copies.
Mm-hmm.
And our work is to become, may everyone be blessed to become an original again. And we do that by reconnecting to our soul that allows us then to experience the divine in all things and join the divine play.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, it's a symphony of life. Yes, play your notes. Your beautiful notes. All right, great. So thank you so much, Gabriel, for being on today. I'm so grateful and so blessed to have you. And I'm just so grateful too for the audience, everybody listening in. So grateful for you listening in today. Let us know how you liked the show. I know I've enjoyed our time together.
Yes.
And yes. And that's it. So check out everything that Gabriel Cousens is up to. I will be. And keep on tuning in, as I always say, and we'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till next time, everyone.
For listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Wednesday and Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.